What's going on YouTube? Josh here checking in. Want to do a quick recap of my last powerlifting meet. So I recently competed on May the 2nd at the Europa in Orlando, Florida. So this was my first powerlifting meet in about 11 months, and that was mostly due to two factors. One, I was recovering from a torn muscle in my hip, and two, being in medical school, it's not that easy to, get in time to, go away for a weekend, do a competition, stuff like that. So anyway, this was my first meet in 11 months. I managed to get a 72-pound PR total, right? The last time I competed, I got a 1240 total in a 181 weight class. This time I managed to get a 1312. So overall, making progress. It wasn't quite the meet I had hoped for. I only went 7 for 9, and let's go right to the meet footage. So as far as squats are concerned, I opened up with 424. This should have been a breeze. I hit 415 for 6 in training. I could hit 425 probably for a solid 5. And as you can see from the video, I cut depth, right? So I don't know what was going on there. Maybe it was nerves. It was the first time on the platform in a while. But nonetheless, that kind of, when you miss your opener, that's always not really a good place to be starting a meet, especially when it comes to squats, right? Obviously I knew I'm good for much more than 424, but, do you take your opener again? Do you go up? My initial plan was to go 424, around 450, and then 463. So I decided to play a little bit conservative. I went for 440 in my second attempt, just because the 425 was really easy. Not really sure why I cut depth. So I went for that 440, which is 200 kilos, went for that and got it. It was quite easy. So from there, what I probably should have done in retrospect is just said, what, for some reason, the first one didn't go quite as planned, and the attempts are not exactly as I had planned either, right? Because the second attempt was lower than what my planned second was, but I decided to go for 463 anyway. Based on how I was doing in training, I should have been good for it. You'll see in this video, this was actually my second lift that I missed. So I missed 2 squats and I went 6 for 6 on the other lifts. So on this third attempt on the squat with 463, of course it felt heavy. I've hit 455 in training, so it only would have been about an 8-pound PR. Basically what happens is I come out of the hole and my neck kind of goes forward. I do one of these kind of like turtle kind of deals, and that definitely messed me up. What I really should have been doing was kind of like driving aggressively back to stay upright, and essentially the weight was just too much at that point coming out of the hole after I lost that stretch reflex, and I lost it, right? So there are a few things that I think contribute to this miss. One is definitely the fact that the jump was a little bit big as far as from the second attempt to my third attempt compared to what I was planning on doing. So my nervous system may not have been quite as primed. Some people might argue that. One thing for sure is obviously the technical error that I just discussed. And then the other thing to consider is that it's a lot of equipment differences that I'm used to. So in training I use a Texas power bar and I lift out of a squat rack that's sturdy and stuff like that. In this meet, we're using a 55-pound Texas squat bar, we're using kilo plates, and I'm lifting out of a monolift. So if you're a raw squat or lifting out of a monolift and you've never done that before, it's not the easiest to do actually, because it's kind of wobbling around. It's kind of hard to get yourself tied under the bar, get your normal setup. So there's all these factors that come into play. In my next powerlifting meet, I'm definitely going to have to do a better job of seeking out, friends who have access to this kind of equipment. I've mentioned it before. I have previously trained at gyms that have this equipment, but just due to my scheduling, I've just kind of been training at my home gym and hoping that it would be sufficient. So next time I definitely have to do a better job of getting access to that kind of stuff. So moving on to the bench press. If you guys have been following the channel for this whole meet, I decided to work with my buddy Jason Manenkoff, who was helping me out doing my bench programming. And honestly, it was exceptional. My training was going really, really great. 3 weeks in, I already had hit basically a 10-pound PR. And I was definitely on course to bench a 280 in this meet, which would have been basically 20-pound PR for the training cycle and a 10-pound meet PR. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen in this meet. So I'll explain what happened. I'll show you the first, my opener, which was I think around 254 pounds. So you'll notice that I'm kind of just holding the bar out there and I don't get a start command. So the head judge was saying that my elbows were not locked out. Okay, so basically what I did is I moved my elbow from here, maybe this will show you, from here to there. Literally moved it about like a quarter inch, like barely. You know, I'm not sure if you can even tell in the video, quite frankly. And then they gave me a start command. So that really kind of messed me up. You know, just holding the weight out there, not that it's exceptionally heavy, it's an opener, but nonetheless, it kind of like messes with your head. You're not really going with the vibe. So after that, I was like, you know what? That really took a lot more out of me. It was way harder than I was expected, just because, you know, it messes with your routine, so to speak. So my plan was originally to go basically like 255, 270, then 280. I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna play it safe. So instead, what I did is my second attempt, I went 265. This time they gave me the start command, but again, it seemed like it was kind of delayed, especially compared to the other competitors. So anyway, this 265 was pretty smooth. I decided from there just to play it safe, just to time my meet PR, and for a third I went 270. You can see from the 270 video that it was a pretty easy 270. You know, had I not had that issue with the start commands, with the delayed starts, with saying that I wasn't locked out, then I definitely think that I had 280 in me on this day. You know, another factor to consider as far as equipment is I've competed in USPA before in Florida multiple times, and they were using equipment that they don't normally use. So normally they have a bench that's very adjustable, and I think that's actually kind of what messed me up. And for some reason, this bench only had two heights. It was low and high, and the high was not quite high enough because I have relatively long arms. So I think, you know, normally I'm used to kind of just unracking like that, right? But I kind of had to push up, my person lifting off had to kind of lift it out higher, and that I think kind of screwed me up a little bit. Moved on to the deadlift. So honestly, I don't even remember what I opened with. I think it was like around 555, give or take, maybe 545, 545, that sounds about right. So anyway, this was my first time sumo deadlifting with a deadlift bar ever, right? I have only deadlifted sumo using relatively stiff bars. So anyhow, for me personally, with my deadlift, if you've been watching for a while, maybe you follow me on Instagram, which by the way you should, the Strength Doc, follow me. You know, in this training cycle, the highest I lifted was 585. And 585 on a stiff bar, for me, is very slow off the floor. So the Texas bar, because it bends a lot, it actually makes breaking the floor really, really easy. So the lockout is essentially just as hard as far as I'm concerned, but breaking the floor is a lot easier. So I noticed that in the warm-up room that everything was moving really quickly, and I was feeling very good about that. So my opener was basically a warm-up, and it went smooth, no issues. I bumped the weight for my second attempt, went I think 578. And it was very smooth. It was the best that kind of weight has felt, but I could definitely tell that the weight is getting heavy, and my plan was to go 601 to finally break into that 600 club, and I knew that I was gonna have to kind of, you know, take it to that next level and really stay focused. So anyway, had the encouragement of everybody around me, went up for 601 and made it happen. From the video, you can tell that it was not a clean lift by any stretch of the imagination. If you notice, I guess I was so amped up that I didn't even grab the bar even. You'll notice that when the bar is basically coming off the ground, I have, like, you know, one side is much lower than the other side. And that's because I just wasn't centered on the bar, right? So that would obviously make things a lot easier. You know, another thing that made this lift particularly challenging is, I'm not quite sure why, for some reason I locked my legs a little bit too early. I think it's just a matter of I need more practice with heavier weights. You know, I'm just not used to using heavier weights, using the Texas deadlift bar, so I locked my legs a little bit early, and as a result of that, the last part of the lift is kind of a grind because I'm basically just using my lower back to get that weight up. But nonetheless, I got it. I managed to do it without hitching, without, you know, the bar practically slows to a pause, but I got the lift, and that was a huge PR for me. So that was really awesome. Anyway, that was pretty much the whole meet there. 7 for 9, not quite what I would have liked. I would have really preferred to go have around a 463 squat and a 280 bench, but I'll have to save that for the next time. For this training cycle, I only prepped for this meet 7 weeks, which is not really all that much. So overall, I definitely am happy with my performance, right? I managed to get first place in my division and actually the highest total overall for all 181s at this competition. But nonetheless, it's always important to stay humble. So the same weekend, the 181 world record was also broken. And the world record is about 500 pounds over my total. So just because I came in first place, in the end, it's nothing. It's next to meaningless. It's not about first place, second place, third place. It's about bettering myself. It's about making progress, and it's about striving towards my potential. So on to the next meet, on to the next training block. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.
Somebody should have told you I'm on one. Yeah, fuck it, I'm on one. Yeah, I said I'm on one. Fuck it, I'm on one. Somebody should have told you I'm on one.